Hey guys, it's Linz. Welcome to Lean Soapbox. Today we're talking about episode 4 of Daredevil Born Again. I really enjoyed this week's episode. I also really enjoyed last week's episode. I think with the first 2 episodes that we got, I was a little scared, a little bit concerned with just how the episodes flowed. But again, after these last 2 episodes, like, I'm feeling a lot better and I'm a lot more excited to see the rest of the season. What I really loved about this week's episodes were the performances. I feel like we had several scenes where like it was just the acting was incredible. Starting off in the beginning with Hector's niece, Angela, and Matt Murdock, and then the Leroy Bradford scene at the police department. I really love that. Naturally, we had great Wilson Fisk scenes, and then of course Frankcastle and Matt Murdock, Charlie Cox and Jon Bernthal. We need to talk about it. Right at the beginning of the episode, I was really impressed with Camila Ruiz's performance as Angela, Hector's niece, her showing just her frustration with the system and how she thinks that Hector's never going to receive justice. I love that we were able to see Matt's reaction to her frustration, right? Because I think in this episode, we get more than one instance where like Matt, there's these things that are pushing him back towards that Daredevil alias, right? Like he's tried to leave that behind, but there's moments that just are like, no dude, like we need you and you need to get back in that suit. But I do want to mention again that I really love Camila's performance, and it's like, girl, like whenever you want to clock in as White Tiger, like we are here, we are waiting for you. That's so exciting actually, because like I think most of us are familiar with White Tiger from like the Ultimate Spider-Man show, right? And I'm just like thinking about like that potential is just, it's super exciting, especially now because we know that like this could be her motivation to take up the White Tiger mantle, right? Again, her frustration that she expressed about there not being justice. Now let's talk about the Leroy Bradford scene at the police department. I really enjoyed that scene as well. We get introduced to this man who happened to steal cereal from a bodega, which seems very unserious, right? And we get a taste of his personality, or just the way that he is, right? He's being really rude with Matt Murdock, who is trying to help him, and he's angry and unsatisfied. Eventually it gets to the point where like we understand, right? He tells us his story, he tells us his perspective. I thought that was so well done, right? Because it humanized him, it humanized Leroy, right? We learn literally the point that he made, that the system would rather put him in jail, spend more money putting him in jail than to find a way to just feed him. Just like Leroy mentioned, it's this cycle that unfortunately mainly affects marginalized communities. And I love the fact that this is being included in the show, right? All the themes that we're exploring, right? Also, I want to talk about Wilson Fisk and Daniel, because this whole little relationship thing that they have going on, it's very interesting, right? Because I for sure thought that Daniel was not going to make it, or that something drastic was going to happen, right? Because Daniel accidentally leaked in the information, it got reported, and it basically sabotaged Fisk's plans at the moment, right? But no, because Daniel admitted, he apologized, and he was saying some other stuff, which is crazy, but the point is, Wilson Fisk, like, he listened, he basically accepted the apology and was just like, okay, but you're never going to do that again, or else you're actually like, you're gonna be over. And again, I thought it was so interesting that like Fisk did not act irrationally. Also with Sheila Rivera, who's his assistant, his advisor, like anytime I get really tense whenever she's on screen, because usually she's like, oh no, like we can't do that, like we can't do that way, or something along those lines, right? Like literally advising him what to do. I get scared because, for example, in this episode, it was the Red Hook port scene. I got it. Where like Fisk was saying, I want this, and this done. And Sheila's like, oh no, like we need to slow down. Like there's steps to this. It's a process. Like you can't just demand something and basically get it. And like the way that like he listened to her and he controlled himself and he accepted it. I was like, oh, okay, that was good. Like it's so interesting to see how like being at this position has like made him very uncomfortable, and I don't think it's necessarily what he expected it to be. And I just love seeing his like facial expressions and like the body language that just proves that he is uncomfortable. Oh my gosh, like one thing about this episode is that it made me laugh. Like that whole scene with the kids, that he had to sit down and like listen to the kids sing to him, his face was so funny. And then the Latvia heritage like celebration, he was like, I literally do not care about this. And it's like, no, like you kind of have to be here. And again, he had to listen to them sing too. But now we need to talk about Frankcastle and Matt Murdock. That scene, guys, I kid you not, I was tearing up. I was literally tearing up getting chills because it was so good. It literally felt like they never left. Jon Bernthal and Charlie Cox, anytime they have to share a scene, they absolutely nail it. I could probably literally comment something about each line of dialogue they said, but specifically my favorite part of like that entire scene was when Matt like swings, I think he punches or like slaps Frank, and then you can see his immediate regret and how like it was just this built up anger that he had, and Frank literally basically had no reaction because he understood, right? And he was like, that's like don't apologize, like that's literally the most honest thing that you've done. I just thought that was so compelling, like and the fact that Frank was able to get Matt to say Foggy's name out loud, right? And how Frank was like, was justice really served for Foggy Nelson? Was it really served? And it's just like I mentioned earlier, it's these little scenes that like it gets into Matt's brain and it's like, is justice really being served? Or does Daredevil need to come back? And then we gotta talk about the end because we got a whole Muse reveal. That was insane. Like my jaw was dropped literally the entire time because I mean, we're familiar with the comic character, right? So, but it's another thing seeing it in live action, and it's just like, it made me feel uneasy, but I loved it. I love that like, it's gonna be so gruesome and gross and like horrible. Pause. That is not what I meant. To clarify, I just simply meant it would be cool. It's just gonna be cool to see it adapted on screen. Does that make sense? Not that like all those things are actually awesome or cool. You get what I mean. But I think Muse's inclusion in this season is going to be really, really interesting. And I love how we've slowly been building up to it. I'm so excited to see, again, the whole Muse character depicted on screen. And I can't wait. Oh, also don't forget, I forgot about Wilson Fisk having full on dinner as he watches Adam locked up. Technically, he wasn't actually watching him because I watched over the clip. And he was more so just in the presence of him because he was like looking straight ahead and then Adam was on the side, which I think makes it even creepier. Okay, one thing I found really, really interesting about this scene is how Wilson Fisk's plate is drastically different than the super organized and put together breakfast that he usually has, his like omelet or like egg. Didn't explain, but basically I do think that has some sort of significance, right? Because again, every time that we've seen Wilson Fisk eat, it's usually his little plate with like the egg, very, very minimal in comparison to this scene where like, no, it was amped up. It was a whole plate, a whole meal. It was something super minor, but it did catch my attention. And it even reminds me of like episode 3 where like Fisk was at his office and he had like that sub. He was like eating the sub, but then we found out it was really just part of the threat that he was doing to the officer. Yeah, I think it was the officer. Commissioner? Wait. You get what I'm trying to say. And I really love how throughout these episodes, we've seen the parallels between Matt Murdock and Wilson Fisk because they were both trying to leave the past in the past, right? You know, trying to move on and do different things, right? But slowly throughout these episodes, we have seen their past selves kind of creep in, right? And at the end of this episode, I think it just full on. It was full on back, right? Because obviously we definitely saw the darker half of Wilson Fisk. And then also we saw Matt Murdock going back to his Daredevil training, basically back to square one. But like, I don't mind it at all because I am ready to see the Daredevil suit again. I have been wanting to say this, but I wonder if like at the end of this episode, season, he's gonna get his double D's on his suit because it's a given. Like they know that we've been asking for that suit, and it's like usually at the end of like the Disney Plus shows, we get a new suit, right? And I'm like, I wonder if we're gonna get the double D's. It's time. Speaking of which, I have a whole theory, okay? Because usually at Disneyland, Avengers Campus, the Marvel Land, they usually introduce the meet and greet character to correlate with whatever television show or film that is coming out, right? For example, when Secret Invasion was coming out, we got Nick Fury. When Agatha All Along was coming out, we had Agatha. When Multiverse of Madness, we got Wanda. And so far, they haven't said anything about any Daredevil characters showing up. So I'm like, what if the reason nothing has been announced yet is because they're waiting for the show to end, because at the end of the show, that's when his new suit is going to appear, and that way the meet and greet character can have the new suit. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Like, I think it's a pretty good theory, and I'm like, give me the double D's. I did just fact check, and technically it hasn't been consistent. Like, there are some meet and greet characters that they do for the shows, and there are some that they do for the movies, but again, it's not too consistent. Because for example, in Girl, be so for real. I'm gonna keep this in. I'm gonna keep that. Sorry. Anyway, for example, in 2024, we had Deadpool and Wolverine, and they did introduce Deadpool and Wolverine to the park. So that was kind of a given, right? Because those are popular characters. It was a really big movie. And then for Agatha All Along, they did have some stuff with Agatha. However, for Echo, they did not introduce Maya into the parks, which simply may be because the character isn't as popular. Or since she does have a disability technically too, you know, finding the right person to play her could have been a whole thing. I'm not sure, but it would have been really cool. Imagine how cool it would have been to like meet Maya and like the person that plays her like knows ASL. That would have been so beautiful. But with Daredevil, I don't know. We'll see what happens. It could be different. Again, they could be willing to add him. So we will see. Anyway, guys, that basically wraps up my thoughts for this week's episode. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe, like, share, do all of the above. And if you want to follow me on my other socials, it's at Lean Soapbox. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.